On episode 99 of The View from Jamestown, we recap the guys' trip down to APLA. They spent 2 weeks down in Latin America visiting customers, suppliers at the APLA International meeting down in Brazil. We recap that. We talk about global supply trends, what's happening, some price increases coming across for December. Oil prices down 10-15% over the last 30 days, and we start to think about 2024. So all that and more on The View from Jamestown. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the View from Jamestown podcast edition. This is episode 99. This is the November 2023 edition. And after some world global travel here, we got the full team back together. From my right to left, we got Latin American Operations Manager Javier Fernandez, VP of Sales and Marketing AJ Petrarca, Inside Sales Manager Nicole Greenberg, not Latin American Nicole, and TCC President Robb Roach. Morning, guys.
Morning, Benny.
Good morning.
How we all doing?
Fantastic.
Welcome home to the right half of my table here.
Thank you.
Good to be home.
I believe it. Was it 9 nights, 10 nights?
I think 9 days altogether.
9 days altogether.
Yeah.
A big trip. Big trip.
Yeah, it's been the longest trip of the year for me.
Yeah.
For sure. By much.
Yep.
Coco, how you doing today?
Very good. Very good. It's a great day.
Yeah.
It is.
Rob?
Doing good. Not as good as her, but
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Friday morning. It's mid-November. You guys, obviously, as we alluded to, back from some travel. I know we do some of these global shows every year between AFPM and EPCA, and obviously the APLA has been one we've done for a long time. And obviously, you guys extended it into some extended Latin American travel this year. You guys want to fill us in a little bit?
Want you take the reins, Javi?
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, so we traveled through Colombia and had some supplier visits, and then headed over to Sao Paulo for APLA and had a lot of really good meetings. So we had a nice APLA. Yeah, we had like 20 to 30 plus meetings all together. It was 4 days of going at it. It was rough, but I think it's all worth it.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yes.
It's a nice way to round out your year of like actually working.
Yes,
of
course.
I'll be done for the year now.
I'm done for the year.
We'll see you next year.
That's a good point. The APLA comes at a perfect time of the year. It's before year end, so you kind of get everyone's view of what's to come for next year. So it's actually a really good time of the year to have a conference like that.
yeah.
Yeah, the timing's good. The layout wasn't properly. The layout wasn't good.
Not enough bars.
No. That wasn't a problem.
There were plenty of bars.
Plenty of bars. But it was just the layout. It was bad. It was. I think I'm gonna send a note to the APLA people.
You're gonna write a strongly worded letter.
The consensus was it was the worst location ever for APLA in the history of APLA. Yep.
So it's never been there before.
I think many years, but
Not since you've been
no,
going.
not since I've been
And
going.
what exactly was wrong with it? I mean,
It was a weird hotel setup. There were no signage. Like we somehow found a registration desk. We had to go through the lobby, up the stairs, through a mall to this other floor. It was just a weird, and everything was segmented, not all in the same area. So it's just a weird setup at the main
layout.
hotel.
Yeah, and we were using service elevators. We were
really? Wow.
The way I could just picture it. I could see you guys.
And it wasn't just us, because you had to walk by these service elevators. It looked like regular elevators until you get in, and it has like the padded walls.
Yeah.
And then so everybody was using that until they found out the real elevators were around the corner. So it was
Yeah, it was poorly organized.
by day 3 we had it pretty well figured out.
It was almost done.
Just in time to leave.
Yeah, by the time we were ready to go home, we had it all figured out.
Yeah, but good opportunities. What is the consensus, AJ? Flat 2024 for flat to up?
Most people were saying flat to down.
That's true.
A couple, I think only 1 or 2 were saying that they don't think we've hit the bottom yet, and that they're still expecting further weakness. But most people are predicting flat into 2024. A lot of elections coming up in Latin America, which is could change things for different countries. Like Argentina has one coming up.
Yeah, this weekend Argentina has an election. They are running 148% of inflation. So my buddies in Argentina are having a tough time, and they want some green dollars.
Green dollars.
Yeah, they're running 4 currencies at the moment. The blue, I don't know what it's just a mess.
Yeah.
And the whole region has turned left. I mean, you have the case of Chile, Argentina, Peru, Colombia, Brazil. A lot of left, and that's not good for foreign investment. It's obviously not good for the chemical industry. So we're seeing some headwind.
Yeah, it seems like you guys had a lot of meetings. So what was the nickname that we've given you for the APLA?
The Godfather, El Padrino.
I haven't heard the Spanish version.
Yeah, I know, that's-
Padrino.
It rolls off the tongue.
Yeah,
right?
he was like on the campaign trail down there. He'd walk at the cocktail party and just be surrounded by people. And it was something.
Yeah, my WhatsApp was very popular, and I've been doing this for 14 years. So it's my 14th APLA, I think. So yeah, a lot of familiar faces, a lot of friends. It's good. It's good to be in my backyard.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
and Cole were walking around with sunglasses on like his bodyguard.
Exactly. That's what it looked like. Javi was out front. Me and Javi, we're like a flying V, the three of us walking around Brazil.
Briefcase full of cash.
Had the one AirPod in.
Yeah, you get the right one, Corey's at the left one. Well, cool. No, it sounded like a good trip. A lot of moving around. I think every time I was talking to you guys, you were in an airport or leaving an airport, going to different places. So it's good to be home, I'm sure.
Yes,
Great
and
to be home.
great to be home, and right now the Thanksgiving next week, so a lot of things to be thankful. When you see other realities, other places, it makes put things into perspective, and what a good week to go to Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Good summary.
We've been talking about some kind of global supply chain stuff. I'm sure the Panama Canal situation probably came up a little bit in that APLA meeting.
So I learned something about the Panama Canal, which I felt pretty stupid for.
Do tell.
I've been telling everybody, I mean, there's oceans on both sides, just fill the thing up, like get some pumps and just fill the thing up, right? But it's the canal is actually fresh water, and that's what a lot of folks use for
The whole ecosystem.
for drinking water and things like that, and potable water. So you can't just
So you got ocean, and then fresh
Fresh
water.
water.
it's all
It-
fresh.
it's
in the
water
center.
into
So
it.
I don't know.
That's
it
an
depends on
interesting-
rainfall. To
Yeah, so he was like, I'm not genius, but let's just pump some water.
pretty sure I can figure this thing out. But yeah, so it's fresh water, so you can't just pump seawater into it to solve the issue.
Interesting.
So I learned that this week.
Wow.
Did you know that?
I did, because they are looking at doing a second canal, I believe through Ecuador. And it's because I'm probably wrong on the country, but you look at that country, the very center is a massive freshwater lake.
Huh.
And they're able to, basically, I mean, you can't carve out. Honestly, I didn't know it was all freshwater, but I'm sure the other ends are brackish. But I think a couple interesting things about like APLA was that you guys went to a heat wave in Brazil when you got down there. So no rain, massive heat wave in Brazil. Same is happening in Central America, Panama and, all the Central American countries. But so I didn't know it was all freshwater and that the impact was human consumption, agriculture, and that sort of stuff. It's very interesting. Like that's new to me, but I know that they're looking at alternative canals, but it's going to take 10 years minimum to build something like that. And you don't want to go all the way around, South America to get up here. But the one thing that for us is it's impacting shipments from Asia big time. There's backup and also lighter cargo necessary to get through the canal. And it looks like it's not going to get better.
No.
So, yeah. So a lot of that, the feedback was, and we're seeing it. It's amazing the impact. Now, we got this week, Xi Biden meeting, San Francisco. Things seem to be going well. But the impacts of Chinese products right now in Latin America are tremendous. I was reading in the ISIS about, the APLA edition about Brazil alone, 46% of what they use is imported, a lot from China, mostly from China. And there's no tariffs. There's nothing to mitigate this at whatsoever. And they also are not typically the most integrated production facilities in South America, Latin America. You've got stranded gas supply, stranded oil supply. To, compete in the world is more difficult. So when things go down, like they have been, they go really down in places like Latin America, South America. And when they go up, that's when they really flourish. So they got to figure things out when you've got so many different countries that are now leaning left. And maybe there's, we're seeing some headwinds in the U.S. with that same thing with a left majority, going against chemistry without an understanding of what chemistry really does. All these things mean, really desperate times, and we're seeing that in Argentina. There's election this Sunday, 148%, inflation. Things aren't going well in Brazil for all the producers. They're hopeful, but flat to down next year. That's not a good prediction for next year. Hopefully it's much better for them, but it's sort of like Europe. Europe has to get together and do something about the tidal wave of imports from China. Same with Latin America. They have to get together and figure something out, or they're just going to become, victims of Chinese imports for forever.
What was the stat we heard about Mexico? There's 6 million tons per year short on petchems.
Yes.
So they have to import 6 million tons per year from, wherever. It's
Right.
pretty amazing.
That's a lot of tonnage.
So it's a good target. So everyone's right now targeting Mexico.
Yeah, well, I mean, probably some come from here because that's that's our biggest,
Yes.
in Latin America is Mexico. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me. Like we were at the EPCA, like everybody thinks that Latin America is a big market, and we always laugh because we know the reality. It's not really. I mean, 6 million tons sounds like a lot, but that's distributed amongst a lot of different products.
We almost got to split Mexico from the rest of Latin America too. I mean, Mexico I'm sure
it's
makes
its
up
own, its own animal a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, we talk to people from around the world. They're like, "Oh, Latin America, but we participate big time in Latin America, but it's not that big overall, and it's also very segmented. So you've got Mexico, second to that Brazil, and outside of that, you really start, dropping quite substantially. So
Well, we also had the 25% tariffs come on relatively quickly, and when all of a sudden it took, okay, now there's a 25% tariff to the U.S., everyone just immediately going to pivot and be like, oh, well, now Mexico, they're going to look to put the same quantity of material elsewhere. So we saw a lot of competition quickly.
For sure.
it's happening for sure.
And it was interesting in your notes, like there's some big companies in Mexico and Latin America that are buying like oxo alcohols and things like that, like just on the spot market in ISO. It's like, crucial materials that companies here are buying in rail and contracts and things like that.
Pipeline, they
they make it. They make it. You really have to make it to compete, so. Yeah, I mean, but there's captive markets down there. There's islands of markets down there, so they have to service that local market. We hear that a lot. Well, we're servicing the local market, and those markets ebb and flow pretty dramatically there.
Yeah. So anything else from APLA? It was a lot
Just
of
the fact that you mentioned his notes. I mean, the fact that we got
true.
I mean,
That's true.
we got good notes from APLA from already.
It's like
Today's Friday.
Javi's call reports.
He just got back.
Yeah.
we got notes. It was
Less
impressive.
than 24 hours
Good
back on
turnaround.
U.S. soil, and there you go. Like, I mean,
He's
that was-
maturing as a salesman. Like this guy right before our eyes.
Yep, turning a new leaf. Hey.
Yeah, he even set up a call to discuss said notes before he sent them out. So this guy's like, he's turning a leaf.
Yep.
Javi's writing call reports. You said you took a whole ton of pictures. Like
Yeah,
you're like holding guys over there. I'm impressed.
I was gonna say, Benny, a lot of that notes, photos. I mean, we see it from.
I'm proud.
You know.
I'm
Learn.
proud.
I guess you can't teach old dogs new tricks.
What else going on? So it's obviously November, so we're sort of at the end of the hurricane kind of season. It seems like it's been a quieter hurricane year, and now we start to look, at least up here in the Northeast, towards cold weather. It's actually been kind of a mild fall, which is nice. I feel like last year and some years prior, you go from nice summer days to snow. Like I know it's November 17th now. We've had snow like October 25th and stuff like that in the past, which we haven't seen yet. But starting to gear up for some of the cold weather stuff. I know the logistics folks have been talking about keeping an eye on freight rates and stuff coming into New England versus out of New England and whatnot. So coming to that time of year to keep a close eye on that, I think.
Well, we just had a tropical storm, well, somewhat of a tropical storm hit the Keys this week, you know, and then there's another one that's east of Central America that's, you know, pretty much off of, I think, Costa Rica that's starting to so it's not over yet, and it certainly is extended in prior years quite some time. So I don't think the hurricane season's over yet.
There was an earthquake somewhere this morning, I think, too, I saw.
Oh, really?
Indonesia or something like that.
I didn't read that.
I saw it somewhere.
I hope everybody's okay. But there's also in New England, you mentioned like the winters here have been really strange. You know, you can almost depend on a mild October, November, December now. I mean, like you can depend on that happening, and then it really kicks in January, February, some, but then we're having really mild springs. So,
yeah. Well, like us on the coast, like it almost doesn't snow anymore. You know,
right.
Nicole gets a foot of snow and we get it's sunny.
She's hopeful all the time. Yeah.
Well, but it to Ben's point, I mean, it's the geographic change in climate just from where we used to be. You know, it's that shift. You're right. It's, you know, warmer later into the year. We're not seeing as much of a, you know, that winter hit, and, you know, it's kind of up for what's going to happen.
I kind of like it.
Yeah, I'm not mad about
you and your cold plunging, you get enough cold, you know, to start your day then.
Yes.
Didn't you buy a new snowblower and just haven't used it?
No, my snowblower is older than I am.
You sold the old one?
Yeah.
But he's only used it probably a couple times, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's still like brand new. It's got low hours, so it's good to go.
Low hours.
You throw that sucker on Facebook Marketplace right now.
Yeah, right.
Got a little antique plate on it. Something else I want to talk about, I feel like that's come up a lot in the last couple of weeks, is sort of restructuring in the industry. I think obviously when stuff gets slow, people do things and close plants and move stuff around to make their financial reports look better and, you know, help with profitability and things like that. I know one of our guys, Kevin, put a good report out this week on sort of summarizing the major companies we deal with that have had plant closures and layoffs and trying to save all this money. You know, one big thing on our side, we saw Ingevity announce the closure of their Louisiana TOFA plant, moving some production to another location, but also really cutting back on some of the standard grades and focusing on some of the higher grade stuff. So something I think we're seeing a bunch of. I don't know if that was a discussion point at APLA at all, but I know we're seeing a lot of that, companies laying people off, not having as big of a presence at trade shows and events, and, you know, lots of companies that are cutting back on travel. You know, some people can't travel at all, can't go to trade shows, things like that. I don't know if do you see any of that with APLA? People there was
a few that they were constrained because of travel expenditure.
Yeah.
So you see also a lot of that on there.
He seems like the big companies.
Usually the big companies are the first one to dictate that.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, rationalization is going to happen. I mean, when demand is as soft, especially outside of the United States, as it has been, we're a global economy now. It's already happening, and it's going to happen. So high cost plants, commodity plants that are high cost are going to be the first to go, and that'll create, you know, a new market situation at some point in the future. But we see, you know, in my 24-year career, we've seen rationalization kick in. And then when we had the shale boom, we saw all of this new construction, and that was for the global economy, which has been shut down by geopolitical factors and, you know, and stuff. So sometimes you need to shed some weight, and unfortunately people are the first to suffer. You know, they let people go first, and like you said, they try and, you know, improve the bottom line. But, you know, we've been talking about it since summer. It's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think specific to us, obviously the Ingevity plant closure, not bad news for TCC. Obviously, we have the European TOFA we bring in, and a strong supplier there. We've already seen, you know, big global companies requesting samples and looking at
Didn't
things
they
like
lose
that.
raw material? Isn't that why they shut that down? They lost so it wasn't necessarily a financial thing. It was more of a loss of their key component.
Well, I think they chose. So they had that, it was either their plan or like a joint venture for the upstream raw materials, and they chose to close that. So this was kind of inevitable on that, but it wasn't so much them losing it out of their control. They've kind of decided to stop making that standard grade, I think, to cut stuff back a little bit and focus on some of the higher cost grades. But, you know, they're closing that plant down in February. They're one of the two major producers of it, and that'll leave a gap, obviously. So, you know, Nicole's been close friends with our suppliers recently on getting samples rolling and things like that, because people are kind of scrambling a little bit for sure.
But it's a good thing to see. You know, anytime that there's an influx in samples, it's, you know, hopefully for one reason or another, but on the better uptrend of, you know, new business opportunities. So
yeah, these seem to be what's driving our market in the last couple of months. You know, like the Ingevity closure is now obviously popping new opportunities. Dow with the fire on the amines, that's, you know, been a big discussion point and an opportunity. The lack of building that's going on right now, so less phenol being produced means less acetone, so that's a big talking point. So it's not demand driven; it's sort of supply driven, and I think, you know, as I mentioned before, that's going to continue. You're going to see those things start to pop, you know, based on that.
Kind of the inevitable cycle. Demand slows down, so we cut back supply, and then demand picks up, and now there's a shortage in supply. And
right. Inevitable.
We go in circles.
It is.
Obviously, coming into the end of the year, we're keeping an eye on the China tariffs and specifically some of the exclusions. You want to give us a rundown of where we stand on that, AJP, as our resident China expert?
As I understand it, my understanding is that the list of products that we deal with mainly is they're exempt from the tariff through the end of this calendar year. And I haven't heard anything around what that's going to do in 2024, but I wouldn't be surprised if it again got extended because, you know, they went through a lot of discussion, a lot of research for this list and determined that they shouldn't be subject to the tariff. So it probably should be extended, but we'll just continue to keep an eye on it in case anything changes.
And it's interesting because since they've been excluded, we've seen the range. We've seen the tariffs come back into effect and then get re-exempted. We've seen the exemption get extended like 48 hours before. I think last time they did it like 4 or 5 weeks before. So
yeah, it's quite messy.
Anywhere from 5 weeks to after they're to expire. Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on that. I know Robb, you mentioned this morning that obviously China and the U.S. are meeting this week in California. Mm-hmm. So some, I think, loosely positive feedback has come from that, and you know, kind of keeping that relationship in as positive as light as possible has been, I think, beneficial to the global economy.
I think so. Hopefully the relations don't get worse. You know, that's what we don't need right now.
Yeah.
The tempers flare and things get worse. It's always good to, we're a people company. You sit face to face, you work things out, you know, because and we may not desperately need each other, but we do need each other. And we're two of the, you know, most powerful global players. So we should be talking, you know. Definitely.
Another funny thing about APLA is Javi and I were talking about the rest of the world is watching our politics and elections very closely. Like they knew a lot more than I expected them to know about, you know, who the candidates are and who they think is going to be, you know, everyone's watching what's happening here because obviously we're, you know.
Well, it's been pretty obvious over the last few terms of the power of a president is pretty, you know, it's impressive the what they can and can't do. You know, you think that the president is there and you got Senate, Congress, and things are sort of tempered and things happen slow because you don't want, you know, a dictator or a totalitarian type of thing. But, you know, the influence that they can have is major, you know, left and right. And we've gotten to the point now where I think Americans, we want to go back to, we don't want to know what our neighbors' politics and religion are. You know, like, let's just knock it off, you know? And it's interesting because even at EPCA, we noticed that everybody's like, they wanted to know what we thought, what's going to happen. We're like, yeah, we don't really want to talk about it. You know? Like, you know, we got one chance to vote in November next year and we'll do it then. But like to constantly fight about it or battle about it, I mean, let's just admit both sides are wrong in so many ways. So it's, but the influence that it has around the world is, it's palatable, and that's why they want to know.
Yeah, I feel like I remember talking about that with other people based outside the States. Like, I agree. It's always kind of surprising how closely people watch it and how much of an impact it does make, for sure.
Yeah, because unless it's something like Argentina where inflation's crazy, like you wouldn't even know election's coming up, you know? But it's not like that for the rest of the world.
Yeah. Well, looking a little bit more, I guess, kind of big picture. I know we've talked about it a little bit, but, you know, we're obviously mid-November, kind of coming towards the end of the year, and a lot of people, especially people that are on the sort of calendar year, are thinking about next year. Seems like a lot of folks we talk to think, you know, as best you can plan for next year, you know, things being mostly flat, maybe a little bit up, maybe a little bit down, you know, specifically Q1, I think people are kind of optimistic I think we're seeing a lot of inventory pressure on December, and then January, February, I think people are mostly optimistic about, you know, maybe things not going back to crazy levels, but at least being solid on supply, or demand and production, at least. You know, obviously it sounds like maybe Latin America has a slightly different view, maybe a little bit more pessimistic than optimistic. But it seems like we're having a lot of those kind of conversations about people talking about next year at this point.
Yeah, you're looking at me. I mean, I'm optimistic for next year. Yeah. You know, on a micro level, our low for this year was September, and we've rebounded nicely in October and November, and nobody expected November to be a strong month. Yep. But it turns out we just had our meetings this morning, and it's a strong month. And, you know, there's obviously been since summer last year, there's been deflation and pressure and quantitative easing. I mean, with the rising interest rates have certainly had an impact we're seeing a lot more layoffs. We're seeing, prices come down, I guess, unless you go to the supermarket or the gas pump. But there's supposedly all the statistics are showing that inflation has been tempered. It's to a level where they think it can continue to go down. And there's some optimism that maybe the rates might go the other way next year. They might actually reduce interest rates next year, which has had an impact on our stock market. Very positive impact on the stock market lately. But a lot of the value is going to these mega cap stocks, these AI, Amazon's, NVIDIA, Microsoft. The top, I think 10 stocks are 3 times more valuable than all the other stocks out there. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about AI and AI's influence in our business, and how it impacts jobs. I think that's a totally separate topic that we could go into huge detail about. But looking at, going back to your original point, next year versus this year, we're seeing it. I mean, we're a small enough company that we can see the trends. We're seeing an upward trend coming into year end. It's very kind of concerning to hear from AJ what we call in the industry the off spec or the over inventory sellers are getting in terms of what people are trying to offload right now. A lot of buyers are interpreting this low prices as something that's going to continue. I don't think it's going to continue. I don't think that's fact at all. It's sort of manipulated by the fact that there was this glut of material coming out of the pandemic era, and there's a lot of people that are starting to now realize that, hey, these prices aren't sustainable coming into the new year. There's going to be some price momentum on a lot of things, especially if we see more rationalization. I'm optimistic in demand picking up too, so right now, Asia, Europe, they're really beat up. Latin America even beat up right now. There's nowhere but up at this point, in my opinion. And if they start rising, could be good for all of us, I think.
Javi, you deal with a lot of stuff, 6 to 8 weeks out, whether it's stuff that you're selling to customers in Latin America or stuff that you're on the sourcing side for. What do have you started talking about January yet at this point? You think stuff will be okay?
A few weeks ago.
Yeah. Look at you work.
It's picked up. It's definitely picked up. People are prepping for January for sure.
Yeah. You get the emails. This can arrive on or after January 3rd, but not before.
Not before. After January they want to ETA.
Yeah, I think we'll see more and more of that. We're already starting to see, as Robb kind of alluded to, some potential price pressure moving upwards. I think we saw the first, at least Plasticizer specific price increase letter that I've seen in a little while.
Yes.
I've heard from customers that are buying a lot of Plasticizer that they wouldn't be surprised to see more of those coming in January. I think there's probably a lot of pent up demand from producers to get prices back up, and we'll see a little bit of that as demand potentially picks up as well in January. So.
Yeah, there's no profitability right now in a lot of these upstream markets, or downstream, I should say. So a lot of these chemistries are being sold at losses or at no profit whatsoever, and they need to get back to making something. And so there's a lot of pressure, and then I wouldn't be surprised to see some court action, dumping suits, things like that. Because it's been overwhelming certain products. It's ridiculous, the amount of stuff that's coming in. And then you see at customers, the domestics are at X and the imports are X minus 10 plus 14 cents. It's like, if I'm a producer here in the US and that's happening, that screams a problem for me, So there's a lot of irresponsible people out there that are bringing these imports in and creating havoc, and they're going to pay for it.
And we're already seeing a little bit of rationalization on that too. People thinking about exiting tank positions and stopping importing stuff for next year.
Big time, yeah.
Would you say the arbitrage is over? I think that was
arbitrage is over. Yeah. It's over. I mean, and if it's not over, you're going to end up paying for it eventually anyway. You know what I mean? Especially if you're irresponsible about it. So people have to be careful. Tanks are being abandoned. And for good reason, they're not making money.
And the interesting thing, I think, with especially some of the December increases is, I was doing the numbers and we'll talk more about it in a minute, but oil has come down $12 or $13 a barrel since the last time we recorded, which is 15%, almost 20%. Yet we were seeing an increase letter. So it's kind of an odd divergent trend.
Yeah, the again, propylene prices are up because of problems. PDH plants going down, lack of available. And that's going to happen if things pick up. If the rest of the world picks up in the new year, the demand's going to kick in, and it's going to push up the raw materials that make everything that we sell. Yeah. So I'm pretty confident you're going to see some of that, in the new year. I mean, the rest of the world can't be as poor off as they have been, so the momentum has to change.
I came across something I thought was interesting that I'm surprised hasn't seen a little bit more press. And so there's this article talking about Germany reaching a deal on electricity specific to industry. So presumably plants and production facilities and warehouses and things like that, because Germany started to see a trend of people moving production outside of Germany / Europe, whether it's companies that have other production facilities or whatnot, because the electrical prices have been so high. So I found that interesting. They're obviously pushing to keep industry in Germany, and so someone's taking a loss on the electricity somewhere, whether it's the government subsidizing it or something like that. But it was kind of an interesting thing, I think, trying to maybe get ahead of any concerns about electricity prices coming into wintertime and things like that. Obviously, Germany being such a hub for the chemical industry and European production. I wouldn't be surprised to hear more about that in the coming days and weeks, especially from companies that are producing in Europe or specifically Germany. Was kind of an interesting trend, and I wonder if we'll see more and more of that type of thing.
It's not easy to be a business in Europe.
Yeah.
It's not. If it's not the personnel laws, it's the sustainability regulations, the government interference in business is horrendous over there. And it's too much. And the thing is that in my career, it's always been, it happens in Europe, goes to California, comes across the rest of the country. And that's kind of stopped, thankfully, but with our left government, getting more left and possibly being reelected and getting more confidence, it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous right now. I mean, you see the ACC and the ACD getting together and suing the government, for the interferences that are happening. They're supposed to give, certain results to testing and things like that in a timely manner. They're supposed to not create headwinds for industry when they're not doing anything wrong. You're not supposed to listen to NGOs, non-government organizations, rallying behind something, a false science, and then giving a law based on that. I mean, it really is important for us to realize that what's happened in Europe should be paid attention to, because if it comes over here, American independence is so important. Us being most of us look at government and say, want something done wrong, give it to the government to do. And we need to get back to that, because they don't do a good job at just about anything. They can't even show up on time and make decisions in Senate right now in Congress. They can't even. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm getting on a tangent here, but the run-up of energy costs was based on a decision to become dependent on Russia, made by politicians.
Yep.
You got to look at who you elect. You know what I mean? Sure. And you also have to push back on these regulations, and not say, just because they're coming down from the government, they're a good thing. Now when you have people that are making decisions that are not even science-based from the government, after pushing, we're all about science and the COVID thing. Come on, let's get real here. But, so yeah, I mean, the fact is, if you're making something and paying too much in cost because of, your electricity prices in Germany, it's just going to shut down. It's going to go somewhere else. There's going to be more carbon emitted. There's going to be less environmental standards. It's just going to be worse for the world, which is so small right now.
Yep.
So we have to, and even in the U.S., we're looking at supply chains so much right now. We've got all this government, pushback on making things here. Yet we saw during the pandemic, we're dependent on these people that will cut us off in a heartbeat. So the rest of the world needs to stop paying attention to our presidential politics and start paying attention to what we're doing in shoring up our supply chain, not just chips for computers. Everything needs to be looked at, and every country needs to look at that as well and take care of their population. So,
I know you work with a lot of our producers that are producing stuff in Germany. I guess urea probably be the biggest one that is very energy focused and plays a big role in that. Have you heard much about price trends or outlooks or anything on things? Or is there concerns about European production costs at this point, or not so much yet?
It's always a concern. Urea is a nat gas derived chemical, but I think that demand's been so soft that urea is kind of more of a supply demand driven commodity. So demand's been so soft that prices have been flat to maybe up a little bit, but overall, hasn't been too much. But again, going into the winter, it may be a bigger deal. That when energy costs in Europe should be increasing. So we'll see. Yeah.
Well, we don't have our friends from the logistics company on this episode. We'll have them on for the December edition. But I know we're talking about freight this morning a little bit. Obviously coming into the cold weather months, so you keep an eye on some of those things. Sounds like there's been some interest in the LTL market between the closure. I'm just kind of reading some notes that our TLC folks sent us. The closure of YRC has impacted some freight stuff. I think we're seeing more and more LTL shipments as companies don't want to bring in maybe truckloads of material to keep inventories low and things like that. Anything else you guys are seeing on the freight side of things that have been exciting?
Another interesting thing we learned at APLA about on the freight side is, I guess countries have changed. How do I word this? They changed how long a bulk ocean vessel can be in service. So like they used to be 30 years and they reduced it to 25 years when they had to take a vessel out of service. So that's creating a constraint in the bulk ocean vessel space. They can't build vessels fast enough to keep, again, government regulation is interfering with things, but it's becoming more economical to ship ISO tanks as opposed to bulk vessels in some cases, depending on the lane and stuff like that. So that was a shift that we saw in international liquid shipping anyway.
Yeah, we're hearing the same. Bulk shipping very expensive right now, especially with if you're demurred, in Panama Canal, Suez Canal, whatever. TLC also mentioned that right now the costs for LTL are very high. They're seeing a huge amount of LTL demand because of it's sort of like they took out the king and now everybody's trying to scramble to figure out who's going to be next in YRC. But keep in mind, a lot of people are calling TLC right now for LTL rates because they can do dedicated, they can group shipments. And if you have a critical raw material, you might have to go with a straight truck and get it there on time.
Getting creative with your supply chains.
Absolutely.
Price updates and trends. We talked a little bit about oil since the last time we recorded. So about 30 days ago, mid-October, oil's down $12-13. Nat gas is pretty much flat. Saw a big increase in the stock market over the past 30 days, which has been interesting to see.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's good. Love it.
This Javi's investment corner. Talk to us, Javi. Talk to us.
No, I'm just happy.
Yeah. I guess along with oil coming off big, we've seen benzene come down, so that's pushed down prices on things like a Dipic, and it looks like that trend may continue for December, if I'm not mistaken.
It should, yeah. I mean, benzene typically, I use that word very loosely, but will follow the price of crude. So with crude coming off, benzene's been coming off a little bit. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, our whole podcast is a big asterisk on it. In theory, this is what should
I know what's happened in the past and what could happen based on that, but
there's no crystal ball.
I don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
I think everybody in every meeting in APLA said that. They mentioned crystal ball at some point in every meeting, that they didn't have one, or lack of a crystal ball.
It sounds like a Christmas gift. Should we give people crystal balls?
Yeah.
The TCC logo.
That's an idea.
That's a good point. I've heard it from everybody. Everyone talks about their crystal ball and pulling out and make predictions. Maybe we should make crystal balls. I'm interested. We'll have the Godfather show up with crystal balls next year. It's like a regular.
It won't tell you anything, but it'll be a cool conversation piece.
Yeah. Well, what were those back in the day? The Magic 8 balls, and you used to ask a question, and there were like 3 or 4 different answers on it. It was like, well, luck of the draw, huh?
It's actually have a shot of tequila inside of it. It'd be like a little nip bottle. Any other highlights on raw materials pricing? Any other thoughts, concerns? Any other interesting notes from APLA on specific to raw material pricing?
Not really. I mean, everything's, propylene's up a little bit. Obviously, like Rob mentioned, PDHs, there's some units that are down, so that's driving oxos up, and some, obviously, 2H based plasticizers. But A lot of other things we deal with are just flat, right?
Yeah.
I mean, acetone was a big topic of conversation at APLA because that's snug in the U.S. Everyone's looking to place material here, but it sounds like there's a lot of material on the way.
There's a lot coming. Yeah,
It's going to be flooded pretty soon here. Because everything else is just, not that interesting. So everybody saw the opportunity and hopped on the acetone train.
Yep. Or vessel, I guess, in this case.
Acetone vessel.
A lot of people doing ISOs because the bulk is too expensive.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys had some interesting meetings with like freight people and ISO providers and things like that. Obviously a big thing for Latin America.
Yeah, you always learn something. You always learn something. It's interesting.
Yeah. You're talking about investments now, or what do you want?
No. I'm just saying.
Tell me about your Fidelity portfolio.
I told you guys to buy Snap.
How's it doing?
It's doing really good.
Yeah.
I bought it at 9.12. It was up 3. It was over 12 the other day.
Wow.
But I still think, the kids are using it. I mean, it's going to be WhatsApp next. Is going to be Snapchat, I think. So I don't know.
It's interesting. It's its own company still. I mean, it seems ripe for takeover like Instagram was.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Like somebody's going to come in and buy them. Yep. You saw the other day that you can buy Amazon directly from Snapchat. They made that deal. That was a big bump for them. So, and then people are getting sick of obviously Facebook's like, you got to be 50 years or older to be on Facebook. And Instagram was
Facebook is only grandparents and racists now. I think I saw somebody said.
And then you got Instagram is it's fading, and because now it's owned by Meta and everybody hates Meta, and Snap is I don't know. I think it's an up and comer. The kids are using it constantly, and then you start hearing adults are starting to use it. It's like, all right,
you heard it here first.
I think there's an upside there, but I don't have a crystal ball.
This is again the asterisk where this is not investment advice.
Yeah, no. We're getting off topic here.
I like it. The off-topic tangents are usually the best parts of the episodes.
But it was $9. Where can you buy a stock right now? Microsoft's $350 a share.
Yep.
Berkshire Hathaway's $340,000 a share. I mean, some of these, Amazon and Google are over 100, 140, 130. I mean, like,
and that's only because they did a split however many years ago, and it was $1,000.
Oh yeah. So I mean, you could buy 1,000 shares for $9,000, and you're making $1,000 every time, and it goes up one. Yep. So that was my point to you guys, but. Don't listen to me.
This podcast sponsored by Snapchat. Trade shows, events, obviously back from a lot of travel. Obviously the APLA behind us. We had CamX a couple weeks ago. Some of us were down at the Compounding Expo. I guess it was this week, technically, in Cleveland, which was a cool show. We'll have a bigger presence of that one. Cleveland's a funny city. The downtown's nice. It's right in the whichever, I think it's Lake Erie. That's right there. Like, it's a nice downtown area. But after 5:25 p.m., there was nobody around.
Wow.
I mean, I guess it's like a commuting in city, and nobody actually lives downtown. But it's a bit of a snooze of a city. Sorry, Cleveland, if anyone's from Cleveland listening. But so we'll be at the Compounders Conference in a couple weeks. Yep. We'll be celebrating AJ's birthday without AJ down there.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Austin. Yep. It's not a bad place to be, Austin, Texas.
We always say better than DC in December. The historically speaking, right?
Yeah. I've never been to Austin. I'm looking forward to it. And that kind of wraps it up for the year. Now we're starting to think about some big shows in the spring next year. AJ's over here researching Berkshire Hathaway.
Stock is $545,000 per share.
$545,000.
I didn't believe it was at $340. I looked, it's $540.
I was off a couple digits. Wow.
But they have Berkshire Hathaway A, and then they have the B.
Yeah, you can buy the B. You can buy the B.
Cheaper. It's like the more.
I'll just buy the A.
Yeah, buy the
A. Count me down for a share.
1,000 shares. 1,000 shares. It was off a little bit. Sorry. 545,000. That's right.
Come on, Rob. Really?
Well, that's a trend. I mean, it was started by Berkshire. I mean, they basically said we're not going to split ever. It's just, it is what it is. Yeah. And I mean, it's, if you want to day trade, that's the one you want to day trade. You can be up 40 grand in a day, or down 40 grand in a day, depending on which way it goes. But I think it's with Chevron and everything going on right now, that's a good stock.
Down $500 today.
Yeah, that ain't much. That's a 0.01%.
Crazy.
Let's buy a few shares. Why not?
Yeah,
I like it. Well, I think that sort of wraps things up for episode 99. Obviously coming to the end of 2023 as well. So we're sneaking up on episode 100, which will be, I guess, our December wrap-up episode, which is cool to see.
There's going to be some stuff happening at that
We got
episode.
we got some things up our sleeves.
Got some plans.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah. 100 episodes, Benny.
Wow, triple
Crazy.
digits.
Yeah.
That's
you must
crazy.
be proud of yourself. It's amazing. Did you ever think?
No, I didn't. And we'll talk more about, we'll talk more about the next one. Very much not. Yeah, more to come.
I said it.
More to come. But yeah, so December will be our 100th episode, kind of a nice end to the year and, summer of 2023. Would like everyone to do a little homework, go back to the beginning of the year, see what our grand projections were for 2023 and just kind of, I guess, reflect on the year. It'd be interesting to kind of go back. I know we were coming out of a COVID period. Demand obviously was pretty low at that point and really still kind of tailing off. So it'd be interesting to kind of revisit maybe our January and February episodes, see. It's kind of a cool thing with the podcast, going back and talking about what we thought was going to happen, what actually came true. And not that it really makes a huge difference in anything, but it's kind of cool to just reflect on the year and what happened and things like that. So a little bit of homework for you guys. We'll kind of revisit and see what we thought about 2023 initially, and then obviously kind of do the same, make some plans for 2024, what's to come, what our grand thoughts are. So yeah, I'm looking forward to our next episode.
Absolutely.
Definitely looking forward to it.
I think since we recorded, Josh Bell had his 4th boy, right? I don't think we talked about that on.
Congrats,
Josh!
Episode,
Congratulations!
Yeah.
Adding to the TCC boy family.
Yes, yep. yes. It might be broken at some point in the future.
Yep.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Any other final thoughts, questions, concerns?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good time of year between Thanksgiving and then we jump right into Christmas season. So
yeah,
coming up.
It's a great time of year.
Very much so.
Sure is. Maybe we'll get some snowfall in between. You never know.
I mean, you will at your house. Whether we get it is a different story.
Very true.
Well, as always, we appreciate you listening. Whether you're on the audio version or hopefully by this point, at least seeing a little bit of the video version, courtesy of the Kettlebottom Creative guys, plastering our faces all over the place. We appreciate that. So as always, thank you for listening. We will catch you on our December episode. We'll catch you on episode 100. We'll catch you on the next one to really put an end on 2023 and look ahead to 2024. So certainly appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Benny.
The material contained on this podcast is provided by the chemical company solely for informational purposes. The information is not guaranteed to be correct, complete, or up to date. The information in the podcast is intended solely as a general education aid. TCC is providing this podcast as a public service, but it is neither a legal interpretation nor a statement of TCC policy. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by TCC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Views and opinions expressed by TCC employees are those of the employees and do not necessarily reflect the view of TCC or any of its officials. All statements, comments, and opinions presented are made in the context of robust dialogue and freedom of expression. TCC assumes no responsibility for any consequence relating directly or indirectly to any action or inaction taken based on the information in this podcast. While TCC strives to keep the information in the podcast accurate, complete, and up to date, we cannot guarantee and will not be responsible for any damage or loss related to the accuracy, completeness, or timeliness of the information. TCC assumes no liability for any errors or omissions in the content of this podcast. The information contained on the podcast is provided entirely on an as-is basis with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness. Thank you for streaming the View from Jamestown podcast edition.
Like and subscribe for more.